Barakatay Hawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is A Walk Through History. And pretty much this is going to be, going into the Nabataeans a little bit. Because, these Nabataeans keep coming up, from time to time. And we're going to, explore a little bit of it today. And the problem is that when it comes to the history of them and the origins, there's some obscurity as to where they came from and so on and so forth, where they went, and Esau can use that obscurity to kind of just make it up as he goes, So we're going to touch on this because there's a link between them and the Edomites, but not in the form of them being Edomites, because when you do the research on them, which Lord's will we're going to touch on it, we got a couple of maps and a couple of pages to go through. Lord's will, it all come together because it's a lot, it's a lot of information. And pretty much this is why, because they're being deceptive anyway. This is why these devils say that the Edomites are Arabs. I'm sorry, that the Edomites are the descendants of the Arabs, or vice versa. Because like I said, the history is a little hazy, and those that are not studied or don't know any better, they'll just accept it because Esau said it. But anyway, I got a couple of pages that I put in the description box. If you're interested to read some of this, you can. I didn't read this page. I didn't read much of it, just the main part that I need. So it says, who were the Nabataeans? And we're just going to scroll down to the part down here where this is early origins, okay? And it's going to go through telling you, that the history is a little hazy. Herodotus, I believe, and Josephus and others, Strabo, they spoke about them, but what we're going to focus on is this paragraph right here. It says, in the Edomite territory, Nabataean culture quickly replaced the Edomite culture. Yeah, because they eventually took over that region. And this is why these devils cleverly, but not so cleverly, because they're more subtle than any beast of the field, they quickly, when they put together that blue letter Bible, they threw in there that the Edomites are descendants of the Arabs because of this situation. So it says, and the Nabataeans became predominant. Yeah, because they took over that land. It's just like this land here, America, was, the so-called North American Indians, whether they called, whatever tribe they called, then you had Gad, Reuben, Issachar. And now it was conquered by Esau, so now it's Esau's land. So people could say in the future that the so-called North American Indians were Edomites because of the people that live there, live here now, that conquered it. But is that true? No, it's not. All right. It says, when did the Nabataeans actually arrive? This is hard to answer. It seems that the Nabatu had a practice of setting up their tents a few kilometers from major cities, right? Because they were nomadic tribes, just like Israel. For instance, they did this at Silah, just outside of the Edomite capital of Busheira. They did this at Midah in Saleh, located 12 kilometers from Dedan, modern Al-Ula, the ancient capital of the Thamuds and Lithaenites, who lived in Saudi Arabia. They also did this at Genesos, just a few kilometers south of the ancient port city of Gaza. Even after the Nabataeans replaced and absorbed the Edomites, ties between the Idumeans and the Nabataeans continued, as it is illustrated by the family of Herod the Great, whose father was an Idumean, he was Antipater, and his mother a Nabataean. because Antipater married Cypros. Cypros was a Nabataean princess. All right, as we see here in the Herodian family tree, Antipater II, Idumean, poisoned 43 BC, married Cypros. And Cypros, which was a Nabataean, princess, was the mother of Herod the Great. All right, when we go here, I typed in, was Cypros a Nabataean? Herod's mother, Cypros, was a Nabataean princess, which intimately links Herod to the Nabataean royal family, but that doesn't have anything to do with them being Nabataeans, because the Nabataeans themselves come from the line of Ishmael. Ishmael is a different line from Edom. Ishmael came later on down the line through Isaac. Ishmael was born before Isaac. That was Abraham's first son. He had 12 sons. Then he had Isaac, and Isaac had 2 sons. One of them was named Jacob, the other one was named Esau. The Edomites come out of Esau. This is why when we read Genesis 36 and 8, it says, thus dwelt Esau on Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. So Esau became the father, his name was changed to Edom, and he became the progenitor of the Edomite race. Okay? So going back, this is Petra, one of the 7 wonders, the Nabataeans. The Nabataeans, an Arab tribe. Now, why is this important? Because they try to say that they are linked with the Edomites. This is why, since they occupied that land, the Edomites were tied directly to the Arab people. When we go to Genesis 25 and 25, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. This is the progenitor of the Edomites, the so-called white men. The Edomites were so-called red. When we look up the name Esau, they got this 100% wrong. Ishah, which goes into the Hebrew word Ishash wa. The wa at the end makes it he, and the Ishash is wasted. Wasted away is he. When we look up the name Esau, it says hairy. The name Esau does not mean hairy. The name Seir means hairy. And that's Sha'ir in the Hebrew. That means hairy, not Esau. Esau Ishashua means wasted away is he. When you go into the Ben Yehudi and you look up the word Ishash, it shows you that it's, I used to know the number, but I don't remember it. It means wasted away. Then it says here, eldest son of Isaac and Rebekah, and twin brother of Jacob, sold the birthright for food when he was hungry, and the divine blessing went to Jacob, progenitor or father of what? Of the Arab peoples. No, he's not. Because when we go to the name Ishmael, which the first time it should appear is in Genesis 16. It says, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. When we go to the name Ishmael, Yashemai Allah, he has heard of the power. Where is it? Yashemai Allah, he has heard of the power, right? When we scroll down, let's see. Why is it not? Son of Abraham and Sarah's handmaid Hagar, and the progenitor of the Arabian peoples. So how can Ishmael be the progenitor of the Arabian people and Esau be the progenitor of the Arabian people. They are not. They are different. Even though they are related, they are different. So you see how these devils do? So let's go back. It says the Nabataeans, an Arab tribe, first appeared in the 6th century BC in the desert located to the east of Jordan and came from the southeast of the Arabian Peninsula. They settled first in Petra. That's where eventually they ended up, and subsequently expanded their territory to the Haran and Levant, and finally announced Basra as their capital. This is why they say that they are Edomites. They are not. They conquered that land. You are not named after a land you conquer. The land is normally or usually named after the people that not colonize it, but eventually they changed the name. But the land was usually named after the people that lived there. Like you had before the land of Israel was named Israel, it was named the land of Canaan. All right, and Basra was one of the capital cities of Esau. But the Nabataean people were not Edomites. They are Ishmaelites. According to historical records, they are descendants of Banayut, the son of who? Ismail bin Ibrahim, which is Ishmael, the son of Abraham. Ishmael had 12 boys who formed a tribe, most of whom were located in Najad, right? And when we look in the map, Najad is right down here, like somewhere in the center of Saudi Arabia. You have the Persian Gulf, you have the Red Sea, and you have Najad right here. This is where they were located at the time. All right, let me move this up. It says the father of the Nabataeans remained at Mount Shamar. When we look up at another map, you have, well, I didn't find Mount Shamar, so it has to be somewhere in this region around here. Like I said, there's a lot of history. It says the father of the Nabataeans remained at Mount Shamar, but was forced to run from the Ashurban-Nepal, right? So Ashurban-Nepal was a king, a fierce king among the Assyrians. All right, and the Assyrians, when you look at the map, the Assyrians came from the east. They were up here in the land of Assyria. You have the Euphrates River, you have the Tigris River, and above here to the north you had the Assyrian Empire. And they were living down here, and they were ran out of this place by the Assyrian king Ashurban-Nepal. All right, and they ran them out of here. So where did they go? It says, but were forced to run from the Ashurban-Nepal to Wadi Arabah. Right? And where is Wadi Arabah? Wadi Arabah is down here. And it says between the Dead Sea, which is just the Dead Sea, and the Gulf of Aqaba. This is the tip of the Gulf of Aqaba. If you go further south down this way, you will run into what's called the Red Sea. If you keep going to the west, you will run into this body of water over here. I believe this is part of it, is the Gulf of Suez. Between here is the wilderness of Zin, and up here is the wilderness of Sin. All right, there was a lot of scriptures when you read them. There was some places that sounded similar, but they were different. It's a lot of history. All right, so they settled, or they were run from around the center of Arabia, which we saw here in Najad, all the way up to here, to what is known now as Wadi Arabah. All right, now if you look to the north of that, northeast, you're going to see Petra, not too far from where they were run off to by the Assyrian king Ashurban-Nepal. All right, now going back between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, which we just saw that. The Dead Sea right up here and the Gulf of Aqaba right down here. So they were right in this area. And as you can see, Petra to the north. It says, during the 4th century BC, the Nabataeans lived as nomads in tents, spoke Arabic, loathed wine, and did not have any interest in agriculture. But by the 2nd century, they developed into an organized society. All right? The Greek historian Herodotus referred to Nabataean history in his writing, where the Nabataeans first appeared in 312 BC and prayed to who? Oratal. Now, who was Oratal? Oratal was, because they despised wine. It said they loathed wine, but they prayed to Oratal. Oratal, I guess for lack of better words, you could say that is the Arab equivalent to the Greek god Dionysus, which is the god of wine. Oratal. According to the 5th century BCE Greek historian Herodotus, Oratal was a god of the pre-Islamic Arabia, whom he identified with the Greek god Dionysus. So it's funny that they would worship, they loathed wine, but they would worship a god that was a god of wine. Also known as Du Shara or Du Sares, which means possessors of the mountains, Shara. Oratal was worshipped by the Nabataeans, Arabs who inhabited southern Jordan, Canaan, and the northern part of Arabia. So if they know the history that the Nabataeans are Arabs and the Arabs come from Ishmael, why do they try to, link them up with the Edomites? Because they're being very deceptive. Okay, they're being fresh. So going back, it says, as the Nabataeans grew in power and wealth, they attracted the attention of their neighbors to the north, the Seleucid king Antigonus, who had come to power when Alexander's empire was divided. Attacked Petra in 312 BC, his army met with relatively little resistance and was able to sack the city. The quantity of booty was so great, however, that it slowed their return journey north, and the Nabataeans were able to annihilate them in the desert. Records indicate that the Nabataeans were eager to remain on good terms with the Seleucids in order to perpetuate their trading ambitions. Throughout much of the 3rd century BC, the Ptolemies and Seleucids warred over control of Jordan. With the Seleucids emerging victorious in 198 BC, the Nabataeans remained essentially untouched and independent throughout this period. Although the Nabataeans resisted military conquest, the Hellenistic culture of their neighbors influenced them greatly. Hellenistic influences can be seen in the Nabataean art and architecture, especially at the time that the empire was expanding northward into Syria. Around 150 BC, however, the growing economic and political power of the Nabataeans began to worry the Romans. In 65 BC, the Romans arrived in Damascus and ordered the Nabataeans to withdraw their forces. 2 years later, Pompey dispatched a force to cripple Petra. The Nabataean king Aretas III either defeated the Roman legions or paid a tribute to keep peace with them. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC augured a period of relative anarchy for the Romans in Jordan, and the Parthian kings of Persia and the Mesopotamia took advantage of the chaotic situation to attack. And as you read on, they eventually were absorbed into the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire conquered them. All right. Then eventually they'll tell you that the rest of it, that they just disappear from the annals of history, just like they did with the Edomites. All right. So now we know a little bit more about the Nabataeans, that they were actually Arabs, which we already knew, that, and the Arabs come from Ishmael. The scriptures tell us that. The history, secular history tells us that. But these devils are going to paint the picture that they are, Edomites, because they took over those lands and they lived in those lands. But that's how the devil does, Somebody says, is this how Ishmael came into Egypt? Well, Abraham went down into Egypt, So no. Okay, I see what you're saying. No. The Ishmael came into Egypt after 600 A.D. 600 A.D. The religion of Islam was prevalent throughout the world. They were growing strength and they were conquering lands. They conquered all of those regions there. This is why you see, in all of those places where you used to have a lot of Hamitic tribes, you see Ishmael there, like Sidon and Tyre, Lebanon, Egypt, and all of those regions. After 600 AD, you had wars, then you had the Crusades, and the Ishmaelites took over a lot of those lands. That's why they're up in there. Now, it depends on where these Ishmaelites are, because you have Ishmaelites and you have Edomites that took on the religion of Islam, which the Edomites that took on the religion of Islam are known as the Ottoman Turks. All right. But the original Ishmaelites, the brown skinned Ishmaelites, they took over certain regions also. All right. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of history. Like Constantinople, in Turkey, they were conquered by the Ottoman Turks, which were Edomites that embraced the religion of Islam. Okay. So let's see what else we got. Oh, now, when we go to the book of 1 Maccabees, the 5th chapter, the 24th verse, Judas Maccabees and the Maccabees had a relationship with the Nabataeans. Judas Maccabeus also and his brother Jonathan went over Jordan and traveled 3 days' journey in the wilderness, where they met with the Nabathites. Now, when you look this up in the GNT, right, you have here, it says, they met some friendly Nabataeans who told them all that had happened to the Jews in Gilead. All right. So these Nabathites are Nabataeans, and we just read the rest of that. Now, we go to 1 Maccabees 9 and 35. Now, Jonathan had sent his brother John, the captain of the people, to pray his friends, the Nabathites, that they might leave with them their carriage, which was much. All right. So now the Nabathites here, now in the GNT, also GNTA, which is the Greek New Translation, I'm not sure exactly, Apocrypha, it says 1 Maccabee 9:35, Jonathan sent his brother John, who was responsible for the soldiers' families, to ask the Nabataeans, with whom he was on friendly terms, for permission to store with them the large amount of baggage they had. So the bottom line, you see that they were all tied together. They had friendly relations with the Israelites, the Maccabees. All right, so they were all in that region, all throughout that region already. Then we have Edom here. It says, after the fall of the kingdom of Edom, the Edomites were pushed westward towards southern Judah by nomadic tribes coming from the east. Among them were the Nabataeans. So this is why the Nabataeans ended up in the realm of Edom, because they pushed out the Edomites from there. And some of those Edomites were pushed around the area of southern Judea, in that area, and then you had the Herodian dynasty, and then you had ties between Antipater, which was an Edomite, and the Nabateans with the wife that he married, Cypros, who was a Nabataean princess, which was the mother of Herod the Great. Then Herod the Great himself married Miriam, which was a Hasmonean princess, of that top line, So there was a whole mix going on. And this is why these devils, they're very clever in the way they put things together, but they ain't that clever. It says, among them were the Nabateans, who first appeared in the historical annals of the 4th century BC and had already established their own kingdom in what used to be Edom by the first half of the 2nd century BC. All right. More recent excavations show the process of Edomite settlements in the southern parts of the kingdom of Judah and parts of the Negev, which is the south, from down to Timnah, has started already before the destruction of the kingdom by Nebuchadnezzar II in 587-86 BC, both by peaceful penetration and by military means, and taking advantage of already weakened state of Judah. Once pushed out of their territory, the Edomites settled during the Persian period in an area comprising the southern hills of Judea down to the area north of Beersheba. The people appear under a Greek form of their old name as Idumeans or Idumeans, see? And this is why you read in Isaiah 34, it speaks about Idumea, which Idumea is the Greekish/Latin way of saying Edom, all right? And their new territory was called Idumea or Idumea, a term that was used in the Hellenistic and Roman periods, also mentioned in the New Testament. During the 2nd century BC, the Edomites were forcibly converted to Judaism by the Hasmoneans, right? That was John Hyrcanus I. This is why by the time the Lord Yahushua came on the scene, you had Edomites calling themselves Jews because they were forcibly converted by John Hyrcanus I. It says, during the 2nd century BC, the Edomites were forcibly converted to Judaism by the Hasmoneans and were incorporated into the Jewish nation. All right, so you get the picture. So this was just a brief history, a walk, as it called it, a walk through history. This was on the Nabataeans. The Nabataeans were an Ishmaelite peoples. They were not Edomites. The only tie that they had to the Edomites, besides them driving them out, was that there was Antipater, which was Herod's father, and the progenitor of the Herodian dynasty, married an Arabian princess, which was a Nabataean princess. Her name was Cypros. Okay, we see that here in the Herod family line. Antipater II, the Idumean, poisoned 43 BC, married Cypros. We saw that Cypros was a Nabataean princess. All right. She was the mother of Herod the Great. So you get the picture. All right. So the Nabataeans are Ishmaelites, not Edomites. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.